at how this has affected the nation. We are going to be talking to our reporter, Dr. Paul Kangede, who is just going to be telling us more about the situation of drought and now becoming a national disaster. And also, we've seen on the Garissa story where the children are affected even to go to school. Dr. Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Nyakundi.
All right, so now let's get right into the discussion and look at the drought problem that we have in the country. So far, we are looking at this affecting farmers. From your perspective, what are we seeing in terms of the effect on farmers?
The effect on farmers is profound because the drought hits their very source of livelihoods. And farmers, most of them, that is their main hustle and their side hustle, as opposed to maybe other people, the corporates who may be working, say, in offices or are teachers or otherwise, they could be farming as a side hustle. Now, when your main hustle is affected, you are grounded. And so for farmers in our country now, it is very difficult for them to make do, and their livelihoods have been affected, and therefore it is becoming very difficult for them to earn livelihoods as well as support their kids who are in school. They have no food, and their animals that are dying. There is no desperate situation like that, Nyakundi.
And now, when we talk about below average rainfall, we have been having the issue of lack of rainfall, and if it is there, you just get maybe a little bit of it. What is the effect of this on a farmer who really just depends on the rainfall in order for them to grow their crops?
Rainfall becomes very important in every aspect of farming, be it planting, be it for the growth of those crops and maturity, and as well that affects the productivity or the yields. If, for example, a farmer expected to get maybe 40 bags per acre of a certain crop, and then the rains fail, they may get nothing from that particular crop, and therefore you are imagining that the farmer has nothing to eat, and as well the animals have nothing to eat. So that becomes now a double tragedy, as it were. Yes.
And now, for a livestock farmer, how do you respond to drought, really, when you hear that drought is now a national disaster? How do you respond to this?
Livestock farmers are the most hit because those that are pastoralists, especially, because for dairy farmers, that's a different case altogether. But for the pastoralists, who are the people keeping the largest numbers of animals, you find that their sheep and goats in their millions are dying. And now when this happens, it is difficult even for them to be able to continue with their lives normally, because once you see an animal has died here, another one tomorrow, 100 tomorrow, the other day, it becomes very difficult because you are devastated at that point. But from the onset, it has become something that we know it will come. So it is just about a matter of, when you're talking about a disaster, then in this case we need to have what we call disaster management, as it were.
Yes.
And these now will entail the farmers themselves and the government now, and the private sector, of course, working in conjunction to make sure that for the resources that are scanty, that say, for example, water, that it is well managed, and where there is no water, that those people can be dug boreholes. That could be the role of the national government, the county governments as well. And now the farmers, their responsibility is to make sure that they utilize that water to make sure that they grow enough feed for their animals and food for humans, as it were. Because if you look at countries, for example, like Israel, they do not have like permanent sources of water, but those people are able to produce enough food for their country and export some to many other countries. And you wonder, why is it that maybe 75% of our country is arid and semi-arid, very rich? Nobody has ever farmed in those particular places, but you find that the earth is just bare, dust flowing all around. But it is the high time that we changed our tactic, because we cannot be crying every day that we have drought, every day we have drought, Nyakundi. And this country has produced people who went to school. You know, it is a shame that we have gone to school and yet we are crying that we have issues, or instead of seeking permanent solutions to these issues that affect us. And therefore, it is paramount that for the incoming governments, be it the national government and the counties, the departments of agriculture, in conjunction with those for irrigation and environment and non-state actors such as the NGOs, they work together to make sure that water is available, enough water for animals to consume, and as well for irrigation, because that is the game changer in the agriculture if we want to see productivity. And the pressure is not yet to be felt because the population is increasing. So we come from animals that are dying, now we'll switch to maybe people will be dying, which is very unfortunate. It is something that can be prevented only if we have strategies in place to make sure that we follow through the plan, as it were.
So you've clearly mentioned about the 75% of our land in Kenya being arid and also semi-arid. Now, in your endeavors, as you do the trainings on farmers, on livestock, when you look at farmers or people who own cattle in the ASAL regions, what is the main challenge that is really facing that area? Because also we were talking earlier and you spoke about the land that is there is able even to grow very good grass. So what is the challenge really?
The challenge that has been there is, I would say it is multi-sectoral in the sense that it is not a single challenge, but a myriad of challenges. Because the livestock keepers, one, they do not maintain what we call stocking densities. You find that for a particular number of animals, they are supposed to graze on a particular piece of land for a particular time, and then they move on to the next patch. Yes. So if you find like 1,000 animals are grazing on a very small piece of land, we expect conflicts. One, because the grass will be out very quickly. And then the resources like water, there'll be so much pressure on that. So you find that even communities like the pastoralism, pastoralist communities will start what we call fights amongst themselves because they are fighting over the scarce resources. Yes. But those fights are things that can be avoided by making sure that there is enough water, both for animals to drink on and for people to irrigate, so that as the animals are having water to drink, they have enough food, because they are what we call drought resistant crops that can be planted for animals as well as for humans, which can yield crops for people to consume. So it is something that it is an issue that we have a solution about only if we prioritize agriculture, because agriculture comes as an afterthought in many counties or even in the national government. You find that there is money for everything else, even in the national budget, but you find that like last year, 60 billion is only the amount of money that is allocated to the agriculture docket. So you ask yourself, if this is what people are living on, why don't we allocate resources to help make more food for the communities and for animals, enough of that instead of relying on importation, for example, which is damn expensive, and the quality of food you are not sure about. Yes.
Even as we come to a close now, and we look at a new government, of course, that is focusing on agriculture, what would be the projections that we'll be looking at, especially when it comes to them funding for the agriculture? You've spoken about water as a main really source when it comes to ASAL regions. So you're parting short on this and what we can look forward to, and even as Kenyans, how can we make sure that we cushion ourselves so that we are not affected by this going forward?
The incoming government has a very big task at hand. One, because if the people are hungry, that's a ticking time bomb, because hungry people will do everything in their capacity to make sure they survive, you see. But the potential in agriculture is immense, and that potential can only be tapped when we prioritize agriculture. And prioritizing agriculture will happen at the two levels, the national government and at the county government. And where at it, we ask ourselves, what will make agriculture work? Agriculture can only work if the farmers have the information on what to grow and how to grow it. So extension services becomes very key in those particular levels, as well as having the materials that these farmers can plant, that is the seeds that are high producing, and then having the information on how to take care of these crops, as well as the markets, and most importantly, not to forget what has been really bedeviling us, the post-harvest losses. So you find that a farmer has planted a lot of potatoes, for example, or maize, but 30%, 40% has rotten before it reaches the market. So those are some of the places where we need to prioritize as a country if we need to cut on importation, because that foreign exchange going to another country, yet there are poor, some youths in the country who can get into that agriculture space and earn a livelihood, and as well as give us food security as a country. It is an opportunity that we would not want to lose.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Okay. Thank you so much for giving us your insights. All right, that is it from myself and Dr. Paul Kang'ethe. This is Business Cafe right here on KTN News. Stick around. We have News Center coming up next with Trixie Ngado.